Think office pranks are all fun and games? Think again. We started with a simple stapler in Jell-O, and by the end, someone's career was on the line. What started as innocent mischief quickly spiraled into a high-stakes corporate drama you won't believe. My name is Maya, and I work as a team lead at a mid-sized tech company. I'm in my late 20s, and my job is to manage the chaos. I love my job. The culture is relaxed, and our team has always been tight. Our office was a place where work hard, play hard was a way of life. A place where the morning started with the low hum of laptops and the high-pitched giggle of a coworker who had just found a rubber rat in their desk drawer. We were all in on it. No one was safe from the occasional prank. It was a shared language of harmless fun, a way to blow off steam. My favorite memory was when our manager, Sarah, came in one morning to find her office filled with 1,000 balloons. We all hid behind our desks and watched as she stood there, a look of pure confusion on her face. Then she laughed, a loud, infectious sound. That was the spirit of our team. Our pranks were a way of saying, we see you, we know you, and we're all in this together. But the pranks started to get bolder. Someone once put a fake spider on the CEO's chair before a meeting. It was all fun and games until one of our senior developers, David, decided to take things to the next level. He was the king of the harmless, technical pranks. He'd swap your desktop wallpaper with a photo of a cat. Or he'd change the sound on your computer to a loud, obnoxious fart every time you got an email. He was a prankster, but he was also brilliant. He was the guy you went to when you couldn't figure out a line of code. He was the type of person who thought the world was a game, and he was always winning. The first time I saw a prank go wrong was at our annual holiday party. We had a secret Santa exchange. Everyone was in a festive mood, a little buzzed, and ready to open their presents. David, being David, decided to wrap his gift in an elaborate, booby-trapped box. It was a joke, a fun way to mess with his recipient. But when his colleague, Ben, tried to open it, the box exploded. It wasn't a real explosion. It was just a confetti bomb. But Ben, who had recently been diagnosed with a severe anxiety disorder, had a panic attack. The confetti and the loud noise triggered something in him. He ran out of the room, shaking, and spent the rest of the night in a quiet corner of the office, trying to calm down. The party died down after that. The music stopped. The laughter faded. We all just stood there in awkward silence. The joke had crossed a line, and we all knew it. David was mortified. He went to apologize to Ben, but Ben just shook his head. "It's not your fault, man," he said, his voice trembling. I can't handle surprises." But it was David's fault. He had taken a light-hearted event and turned it into a moment of genuine fear and distress for a coworker. That was the first time I realized our pranks weren't always harmless. They weren't just a way of blowing off steam. They were a way of exercising power, of controlling the narrative, of making a coworker the subject of a joke. And that was the first time the laughter stopped. But it wasn't the last. The pranks continued, but the spirit behind them changed. It was no longer about shared laughter. It was about one-upping each other. The jokes became more personal, more targeted. I remember one week, a new intern had a messy desk. Nothing major, just a few scattered papers and a couple of coffee mugs. David, who had taken a back seat after the incident with Ben, saw this as an opportunity to regain his crown as the office prankster. He decided to organize the intern's desk. He bought a bunch of tiny storage containers and meticulously sorted all of the intern's pens, pencils, and paper clips into little boxes. It sounded harmless. It was anything but. The intern, whose name was Sarah, had a system. She knew where everything was. David's organization threw everything into chaos. She spent 2 days trying to find a crucial file she had been working on. She missed a deadline. Our boss, who had always been tolerant of our pranks, was furious. He didn't yell, he just gave David a look that said, "You went too far." It was a subtle, but clear, warning. But David didn't listen. He saw the office as his stage, and the rest of us were just his audience. He needed applause. The next prank was a technical one, and this is where the real trouble started. We had a new, expensive server that we used for our most critical data. It was a state-of-the-art machine, and no one was allowed to touch it without a specific authorization. But David, being a senior developer, had access to it. He thought it would be funny to mess with the server's network settings. He created a script that would slowly, almost imperceptibly, degrade our network's performance. The internet would just get a little slower. Files would take a little longer to load. The changes were small enough to go unnoticed for a few days. But they were large enough to matter. Our team started missing deadlines. We couldn't get our work done. We were all running around, trying to figure out what was wrong. The IT department was stumped. The network logs were clean. No one could figure out what was going on. I remember sitting at my desk, trying to download a large file, and just watching the progress bar crawl across the screen. I was frustrated. My team was frustrated. The entire department was frustrated. I started to suspect David. He was too calm, too collected. He was the only one who didn't seem to be affected by the slow network. He would just sit at his desk, a small smile on his face, as if he were enjoying a private joke. I went to my boss and told him my suspicions. He was hesitant. "David's a brilliant engineer," he said. "He wouldn't do something like that." But he agreed to look into it. He ran a diagnostic on the network. He found the script. He found the evidence of David's prank. My boss was furious. He confronted David. "Why would you do this?" he asked. David just shrugged. "It was just a joke, man," he said. "I didn't think it would be a big deal." He had ruined our project. He had ruined our credibility with a major client. And for what? For a joke? My boss, in a fit of pure rage, fired him on the spot. The office went silent. No one said a word. The laughter was gone. The pranks were over. But the ripple effects of David's actions were just beginning. The client we had been working with was furious. They had lost a day's worth of work. We lost the contract. Our team was put on a performance improvement plan. We were all working late, trying to catch up on the lost time. Our department was the laughingstock of the company. It was no longer a place of fun and laughter. It was a place of stress and anxiety. The pranks had gone too far. They had crossed a line, and now we were all paying the price. And that's when I decided to get revenge. Not on David, he had already paid the price. But on the culture that had created him. The culture that had allowed a simple prank to ruin our lives. I was devastated. Not just by the chaos, but by the fact that David, the guy who had once seemed like a fun, harmless coworker, had single-handedly torpedoed our project. I was determined to fix it. Not just the network, but the company's view of our team. It was no longer about getting credit. It was about earning back respect. I spent the next 48 hours with the IT team, poring over every line of our network's logs. I was searching for anything that looked out of place. I wasn't a network engineer, but I was a team lead. It was my responsibility to fix this. My team saw me doing this, and they started to follow my lead. They were just as angry as I was. We were all in it together. We were looking for the digital footprint of a man who thought he was a ghost. I finally found it. It wasn't in the network logs. It was in the server's backend. David had created a ghost account. It was a simple, elegant piece of code that would run at random intervals and subtly degrade the network's performance. It was a digital ghost, a silent saboteur that had gone completely unnoticed. I showed it to the IT team. They were impressed. Not by the prank, but by the sheer audacity of it. The script was a masterpiece. It was a work of art. I wanted to destroy it. I wanted to delete it. But then I had an idea. An idea that was 1,000 times better than any prank David had ever pulled. My revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be quiet. It was going to be a masterpiece. I didn't delete the script. I modified it. I changed a single line of code. I made it so that the script, instead of slowing down the network, would send a daily report to every single executive in the company. The report would contain a list of all the scripts that had been running on the network that day. And at the top of that list, right next to the time, would be the ghost account that David had created. I also added a special line of code that would highlight all the files he had touched, so it was clear that he had created the mess. I was going to turn his own prank into a digital paper trail. I was going to give him a taste of his own medicine. For the next week, the executives received a daily report from the ghost account. They didn't know what they were looking at. They didn't know that it was a report of a silent saboteur. But they started to ask questions. "What's this about?" they would ask me. I would just shrug. "I don't know," I would say. "I think it's a new security protocol." The executives, who had once been so sure of David's genius, were now questioning his every move. His reputation was in tatters. He was no longer the brilliant, trustworthy engineer. He was the man who had ruined our project. The office started to feel different. People stopped making jokes. They started to talk to each other. They started to trust each other again. The pranks were over, and a new era of respect and collaboration had begun. I became the hero of the department. Not because I had taken down a prankster, but because I had fixed a problem that no one else could. My boss gave me a promotion. My team started to look at me differently. I had earned their respect. I had become the leader I was always meant to be. It was a quiet victory, but it was the most satisfying one. I didn't get revenge with anger. I got revenge with strategy. I used a man's arrogance against him. I used his pride as a weapon. I taught him a lesson that he would never forget. The office is quiet now. The pranks are a distant memory. The laughter has returned, but it's different. It's real. It's not just a way of covering up a prank. It's a way of celebrating a job well done. The moral of the story isn't that pranks are bad. It's that you have to be careful what you build. Because sometimes, your greatest creation can become your undoing. The best way to beat a saboteur isn't to fight them.
Thank you, and let me know in comments how you like the story. Which part was the most interesting and what kind of revenge stories you like? Subscribe for weekly interesting revenge stories.